Hello gamers, welcome to another edition of Tonight on Mage Hammer's Game Table, where tonight I'm continuing my Mage Hammer's Musings series, Which One Should You Play? Which is not really a review. I'm not really into reviews. I don't feel I'm as I have the authority to do reviews. I don't know, whatever. That's just my own little hang up, so don't worry about that. But instead, what I do is I show you what I have of two game systems that I feel are fairly similar, and then you decide which one would work best at your table. Now, my caveat for this series every time is, look, I love both these games, and I'm not trying to say one is better than another. I am honestly, if you only had one to choose from to play at your table, which one would be the one you would choose? However, I suggest you play both of them. Okay, so that out of the way, let's talk about the two games that I'm featuring today. We're going to start with Tiny D6. Now, and the other one, of course, is Tricube Tales, but we're going to start with Tiny D6. So I discovered Tiny Dungeon on sale at a drive-thru RPG deal of the day, and I was like, whoa. And this was about the time I was shifting my play style from crunchy, medium crunch games to minimalist rules light games. As I got older, rules light games became much more attractive to me as a father, as a husband, as a teacher. I had all of these other demands on my time. When I sat down to play, I wanted something that was less crunchy, because I'm losing brain space. The other thing is that I've always for quite a long time, since 3rd edition D&D, I've been a solo player, role-playing game player. So that was another reason I shifted to minimalist / rules light games, because I like to play multiple characters when I solo role play. So a minimalist / rules light game made more sense for me, so I started exploring many of those. So, point being, when I saw Tiny Dungeon on sale, I bought it immediately, and I'm like, ooh, this is this is a system for me. Okay, and so this game came out. The Tiny D6 Player's Guide here, when it was bought by Gallant Knight Games, Alan Barr, off of Brandon McFadden. He bought the rights. Alan Barr bought the rights for his game company, Gallant Knight Games. So this says 2018. So probably a little bit before that, Tiny Dungeon came out. But that's kind of the time frame that we're looking at. In comparison, Tricube Tales looks like it was published in 2019. So both of these games have been out roughly about the same amount of time. So, as I said, we're going to focus here on the Tiny D6 system. The reason I say that is because Gallant Knight Games has come out with quite a few genre books. Alan Barr, the designer, has said publicly that he has no plans on creating just a single core book for D6. Instead, they're going to go with their model of bringing out different genres and publishing material on those genres, which is fine. But that's one of the things you need to take consideration if you have to choose between which game you're going to play that night. Okay, so the first one, the OG, is the Tiny Dungeon. All right, so the core of the Tiny D6 system is it is a class and heritage, I believe they call them, system. So you collect a heritage, and I'm sorry, there's no classes, but it is a heritage. And then from there, you can kind of turn your heritage into whatever quote-unquote class you want by choosing traits. Most heritages start with start with 3 traits, and they also have a trait that comes along with their heritage. These traits dictate what your character is good at, okay? So it is both systems, technically, yes, but since we're talking about Tiny D6, is a it uses 3 dice. And I hesitate to call it a 3D6 system because it's not. So you need a 5 or 6 on a die to get a success during a test. And so if you are, I want to say, if you have a trait, when you, let's say you have, let's say stealth, right? Stealth is a trait. Let's see. QRS, sneaky. So you gain advantage when testing to hide or sneak around. So you'd roll, oh, you got it, you got a success. This is a 6. So you were sneaky. You did what you needed to do. Let's say you wanted to sneak, but you don't have sneaky trait, and you are you roll 2 dice and try to get it. And then if you have some kind of disadvantage, you roll 1 die, trying to get the 5 or 6. That's pretty much the core of the system. And the traits decide basically most of the time whether you have advantage on something. But then there are specialized ones like healer. As an action, you can test 2d6 to heal a creature other than yourself. If the test is successful, target creature is healed for 2 hit points. And this game does use hit points. And each heritage starts with a number of hit points. And you can take traits that can modify that and so forth. And of course, this is your fantasy. This is the fantasy version, and this was the first version. And it is a minimalist system. I would say pretty much a minimalist system. I wouldn't even say rules light. So you choose a heritage, 3 traits. If you're a human, you get 4 traits because most heritages have their own trait. So that basically evens that out. A weapon group, they have light melee, heavy melee, light ranged, heavy ranged, and you choose a weapon group, and then you specifically choose a particular weapon to be mastered, as they call it. Then you select a family trait and a belief, which can also add advantage to a roll depending on the background, and those can be pretty much whatever the player wants. So you've got your usual human, elf, dwarf, goblin. This is civilized by goblin. They have their own little lizard guys. They're kind of small little lizard dudes. Tree folk, bear folk, and lizard folk. So those are the core heritages that you can play in the fantasy realm. That being said, they had a newsletter that would come out. It was called the Tiny Zine, and they put them together into compendiums. I used to be a member of their Patreon, but they have since moved on to their own system for backers. But when I was on Patreon, I would get some of these at cost, and they would compile them. I'd get them in emails when it was due, and then they put them in the cost. Now, these zines expand Tiny Dungeon like crazy. Like, they add different NPCs, but Tiny Dungeon zine, the Tiny Zine isn't just Tiny Dungeon. It also has stuff for their other genres, which we're going to get into. But they add heritages, they add traits, they have adventures. Like, there's so much going on in these Tiny Zines. I can't even express it. They're really, they put in different worlds, different creatures. This for like Tiny Wastelands, which we'll talk about. So there's so much in every one of this. Even the Tiny Zines will come out, and then you put them in the compendiums, and you have them for those years. This is this says 2020 on the spine, but it's actually 2021. This is 2024, and it has so many things that expand all the different genres, all in here. Give you so much that you can use to work with as a game master or a player in the Tiny D6 universe. Tiny Dungeon, they have specific adventures, and the adventures are very minimalist and very adaptable. You could even use them, basically could probably just use them for any system really, but they work obviously especially well for the D6 system. And I have these 3 adventures here. Pardon me. So these are really cool adventures. I've run this one for one of my groups, and it went really, really well. And that is Tiny Dungeon. Most of the genres all follow. See, and it has a bestiary here. So it has your usual suspects and so forth and so on. And if you'll notice, basically the creatures have hit points, a description, then they have a couple traits, and that's it. And that's, the traits. Sometimes the traits are ones that people can take, or they are specific to creatures, like constrict, reach, and hurl. So this gives you some idea of what the bestiary looks like and what creatures look like if you're going to be playing a D6 game. New prestige traits, animal companions, magical disciplines. Magic is very minimalist in here. You basically take a trait of either scroll speaker or spell touched, I think it's called. And you basically, spell touch and spell reader. You spent years learning the sacred language of arcane, allowing you to read powerful words from magic spells, and then spell touch. So that's the magic system in Tiny Dungeon. Full disclosure, I'm not a big fan of their magic system, so I created my own, and you can see that in my Tiny Dungeon one-shot video, if you'd like to go back and take a look at that, just to see how it plays. Also, someone else came out with the Micronomicon, which basically gave a bunch of different options for magic systems in Tiny Dungeons and spells and so forth, which you don't really have spells in the core. And the tiny zines, many of them have different ideas for making magic work better for your tastes in the Tiny D6 system. So we start off with Tiny Dungeon. I mentioned the tiny zines, which kind of go throughout. Oh, here's another. This is a third-party Tiny D6 adventure, The Tomb of Immolation, which is really kind of stylistically looks very Morkborg, I guess, even though it's pure Tiny D6, which is really cool. So that's another adventure I have for that. So moving on, like I said, they prefer to come out with genre books. So this is Tiny Wasteland. So being a huge, massive Gamma World fan back in the day, and even up to this day, I had to get their post-apocalyptic games. So it's Tiny Wastelands. You choose a heritage, get some traits, pretty much the same core system, save tests, combat tests, all that stuff. Save tests, of course, are 2 dice unless you have a trait that gives you 3 dice, or unless you have something going on that doesn't allow you to have that, you roll 1, trying to get a 5 or 6. If you get it, you're successful. That's the whole system. So Tiny Wastelands is kind of like, the other really cool thing about these genre books is that they have a bunch of micro settings at the back. I don't have the Tiny Dungeon one because I pretty much just run things in my own world, but the main core book of this has a ton of micro systems, and each one of them has their own bunch of different, like California Smoke and Gold. So you basically play in post-apocalyptic California, or the Red Fever, like different micro settings, they call them, that you can set your game in that will kind of change how things work in your area. So anyway, every one of them has they have little random tables that you can create. Tiny Dungeon has so that you can create different creatures if you need to off the cuff. This one has you create different settlements for your characters to go out of and work out of and live in and so forth. They all have a bunch of optional rules. They each provide a list of enemies, but they also give you a very, like the enclaves, that's the word I was looking for. And you can kind of randomly determine, it gives you guidance on how to create your character's enclaves, vehicle rules. Here we go. Here's the tables I was talking about. If you scavenge items, wherever you are, you roll them up. That's a classic from Gamma World, is the old loot tables. So they kind of work that into this out of tradition. I would say that Tiny Wastelands is a little more Darwin's World and less Gamma World, but you could really play it any way you wanted to. So this is the post-apocalyptic version. That's pretty much all I have for that one. I did run an online campaign at Tiny Wastelands back during COVID, and it went really well and had a lot of fun with it. Then they have Tiny Frontiers Revised. This is their sci-fi rule set. I have videos of all these and actual play videos for all of these. I did a Tiny D6 focus a while back, and but I've done quite a few Tiny Frontiers. Probably Tiny Cthulhu I've done the most of, and then Tiny Frontiers is the next as far as what the content I've created. Once again, it's pretty much you create a heritage, and then they give you a bunch of heritages. In the revised system, they added a couple more. Then they have traits, and the traits are not necessarily the same for each of the genre books. They are, they kind of, some of them are the same. Like Die Hard is, I think, is in through most of these. But then, like, you know, if you have engineer, for example, or detective, like they're very genre focused. Ghost in the Machine. You have Ascension holographic digital system to make your life easier. Like, they definitely tailor the traits to fit the genre that you are playing in. Cybernetics, psionics, running adventures, enemies chart. It's a very simple enemies chart. I've really used that to my advantage when I've run this. I ran a face-to-face campaign with Tiny Frontiers for my face-to-face group. Great. It was kind of a riff on Aliens, and it really played well. We all had a really good time with it, and it plays really well at the table. They also have published adventures for Tiny Frontiers, and the John Wick, not the character, the game designer. So that's quite a pedigree there. Jonathan Hicks as well, William Sobel. So they got some good names to create their Tiny Frontiers modules. So these modules pretty much have, you know, they have like an outline of the adventure. They give you the NPCs, and they let you run with it and enjoy the story. Then Tiny Supers. When I play superhero games, as of right now, Tiny Supers is my go-to system to play. I think it encapsulates superhero role-playing with the minimalist / rules light vibe that I need for my superhero role-playing. The micro setting, the Gallenverse, they have an entire setting in this book. And in addition to that, they also came out with the Gallenverse campaign guide. So like that, this is one of the most detailed and established settings for superheroes that you're going to find in the business. Like it is, it's got everything you need to run a superhero game. They went with, in this system, they went more with the quote unquote class rather. Well, I guess this counts as heritage. They call them archetypes, you know, Paragon, Defender, Striker, Gadgeteer, Expert, Controller, Mastermind. They all have their own little traits, and then they can choose different traits as well. But they can also choose power. They call their powers power traits. And if you play, depending on what level of superhero-y-ness you want, you can choose these traits depending on build the kind of superhero you want. And there's different levels, tiers they call them, for each of the different superpower traits. But it all works together very seamlessly. And these are very general to a certain point where you could pretty much create any superhero that you want. And it really, but in a very simple way. Choose your power origin. Every superhero there have a weakness. Weapons pretty much work the same way they do and all the others. And then, like I said, it's one of the most detailed superhero settings, the Gallenverse. And then plus they give you a rogues gallery, which has a bunch of different villains in it that you can use against your supers. And it is just awesome. So I think of all of them, Tiny Supers might just be my favorite of all the genre books. And of course they have the Gallenverse campaign guide. They have modules, the Ray of the Resizer, the Teaming Shore Part 1, Teaming Shore Part 2. These are Tiny Supers adventures, so that stuff's out there for you to get. They have teen, if you want to play teen superheroes, like Teen Titans or Young Justice or whatever kind of style campaign. They came out with a source book for that to help guide you through that. A third-party creator, Sean Carmen here, came out with Tiny Legacies, so he has a bunch of different options in here. More of a street level, created kind of his own city, like a little gritty street level Batman / Daredevil / pulpy kind of thing. So that's a third-party thing that they came out with. Tiny, I think for a while, Tiny D6 had a Tiny Trove, where they allowed people to go out and publish their own stuff on DriveThruRPG with some licensing restrictions, not much. But I think they've done away with that. And so, but some of the stuff was coming out of that program, and I think they may have replaced it with something else. I'm not exactly sure. Now, Tiny Cthulhu, I have like 2-3 series of this. Playing this. This is basically, is exactly what it says, Cthulhu, right? But also it has a pulp and noir modifiers that you can do to kind of influence your campaign. As most of you know, I'm a huge pulp person, so if you've seen some of my other videos, you know that I've used this to great effect running a pulp campaign. And this is just, I love this system for Tiny Cthulhu and pulp. And so it basically starts with archetypes, and then you can modify those with traits. It has the same weapon system. It gives you a wonderful mythos collection. It has different places that you can go and the effects of them. It has a bunch of gadgets if you want to play the gadgeteer. It has creatures. It gives advice on how to create your own creatures. And then it gives you, of course, micro settings. Arkham High, so you base it in a high school level. The Dark Forest, like a bunch of different micro versions. The Longest Days, which basically can be settings, and then you run your adventures in them. But they also kind of just scream, "Here's what you do to create your own adventures," and it's just it's really a really well done product. I really like it a lot. So that is Tiny Cthulhu. I, of course, have modules or adventures for Tiny Cthulhu. I'm showing my age calling these modules. So they ran a actual play series on their YouTube channel featuring these characters for Yukon Dark. That was very entertaining. I enjoyed it a lot. Then they have small little genre books that just they pop out, and so Tiny Gunslingers. This is basically D6 Western, but they have a really cool system for where do they get your traits? Hiding and sneaking, death, yeah, the usual. But they have a really cool. It has to do with playing cards. It's really kind of fun. I'm trying to figure out running adventures, enemies, chapter 4. Oh, so then they gave you some adventures to run, places. I swear there's something really cool in here with playing cards. I can't remember what it is. Oh, Grit, the Grit system. Grit system came out in Tiny Cthulhu. Basically, this is like luck dice or inspiration tokens or whatever. You can use it for various things. Those of you who watch my videos have seen that actually in action. Bounty. Maybe the Grit. I swear there was something with it. It's been a while since I've taken a look at this. Western stuff is not really it's really appealed to me too much, but I think I got this as part of like being a patron, so I got like at cost to get this. I got it, of course. Can always mix this stuff together. It's wonderful. Tiny Living Dead. I ran a one-shot of Tiny Living Dead with my brother and his friends. It was great. So this is basically very zombie focused. Of course, there's zombies in there's zombies in Tiny Wastelands, there's zombies in Tiny Dungeon, but these are the zombies of The Walking Dead or 28 Days Later or Night of Living Dead, whatever. But you're playing survivors in a zombie apocalypse, and basically different kinds of zombies, fast zombies, slow zombies, stuff like that. But this ran really well. We had a really good time with that. Then the most recent one that I have straight from Gallant Knight Games is Tiny Spies. Tiny Cyberpunk is out. I have the PDF, but I have not received the code for my hardcover yet. Pretty sure I got that in a Kickstarter. but I had the PDF, so I mean it's cool. Also, oh, one thing I want to mention, also in Tiny Frontiers, I don't have the print version of it, but there's Mecha and Monsters. They basically took Tiny Frontiers and then came out with like another small little micro game, I guess, that takes the Tiny Frontiers rules and then applies them to Mechas and Monsters. They updated that to like a 2nd edition not that long ago. That's a really cool thing. I was going to bring that up on my tablet and show you, but instead I'll just tell you about it. Tiny Spies. This has all kinds of spy-related stuff. Alan Barr is a huge fan of espionage movies and stories, and so he had to, of course, create Tiny Spies. And you create your super spy, and this is a lot of fun, and it's good to mix with some of the other things, the other systems. Tiny Cthulhu, for example, you can use, or just play it on its own. Gives you some guidance for how to run spy stuff, vehicle stuff, chase rules, which can be then ported over to any of the other genre books if you like. Gadgets and Gears. So that is Tiny Spies. Like I said, there's Tiny Cyberpunk, which is also very, exactly what it is, cyber stuff. Then there are a couple of other companies that came out with their own versions. So Saints and Sinners uses the Tiny D6 system, but is basically an entire sci-fi setting / game, and it expands the starships and tech, and it has a bunch of different heritages that you can take and create your characters with. So I had to get this, of course. This is a really good source book. Even if you don't play in the system, it gives you lots of stuff you can take and pull out for your own sci-fi games. It gives you lots of great ideas. And the setting is just really, really classic space opera stuff that's really, really cool. Lots of NPCs, different corporations, organizations, the different areas of the universe that they have. I think they've come out with this for another system as well. So they're really, pushing. The art is amazing in this book. So Saints and Sinners also uses the D6 system. Then Sean Carman, the guy that came out with a couple of those Tiny Supers stuff, he also came out, he basically took D6 and put it into a steampunk, kind of like a steam fantasy punk setting. And it is a really cool setting. I've read it, I've never played it, but there's lots of stuff in here you can take and port into your own other genre stuff for Tiny D6. It all works seamlessly together. It's really, really cool. Then, official Advanced Tiny Dungeon. For people that needed a more granular / they wanted a bit more stuff, I guess, or they didn't necessarily like the minimalist approach of Tiny Dungeon. Mark Parrish came out with Advanced Tiny Dungeon, and it, adds all kinds, and basically is the Tiny D6 system, but there are obviously quite a few changes to it. I have only kind of skimmed through this. I have this just to have it for my Tiny D6 collection, but it basically takes Tiny Dungeon and expands it in directions that might be more palatable to people looking for a crunchier, less minimalist fantasy system. So it is Gallic Game sticker. That's what Advanced Tiny Dungeon is. This game has a lot of fans. If you lurk about the Tiny D6 areas, Discord and so forth, people really like this Advanced Tiny Dungeon. So it might be something else that you'd want to look into. It is published by Gallic Games because it is official, and Advanced Tiny Dungeon features more complex rules, more involved options, more choices to make. If you wanted just your streamlined gaming a bit more crunchy, here's how you get that. That's exactly how I described it, and that's exactly what it is. So that's Tiny D6, and like I said, they create genre books, and that's their business model, and that's perfectly great. But now, as opposed to that, Tricube Tales is a universal system that is basically fits into this little book. Now, there is a game, or there is another product called Tricube Tactics that basically does to Tricube Tales what Advanced Tiny Dungeon does. I watched a review of that on Sharp Mountain Games, and it basically does exactly what Advanced Tiny Dungeon does for Tiny Dungeon does for Tricube Tales. It just adds a bunch of different, because this is about as minimalist as it gets as well. And so I think you can get this you can get a version of this, the cell phone version of this, like Drive-Thru RPG has a format for cell phones, and I think it might be free. So I've read good things about Tricube Tales, so I bought it. Now, obviously, full disclosure, I've played one solo game of this, and I created some characters just to kind of see what it does. And at its heart, it basically has the same design philosophy, I think, of Tiny D6, where you basically have 3 dice, thus tricubes, and that's all you have. And then you roll different amounts of dice, and you try to hit different numbers. Tiny D6 has different actions you can take in combat to kind of mitigate that. Tricube Tales has different things like karma and perks that you can use to modify those things in your games. So writing layout, Richard Woolcock, he says here in the preface that he created a simple set of guidelines for his 5-year-old son. Apparently he is a big Savage Worlds fan, so he kind of want to create a universal system that was way less crunchy than Savage Worlds. Savage Worlds, I'd say, is about medium crunch to heavy crunch, or medium to heavy is a strong word. Anyway, medium crunch, let's say. This is a minimalist, narrative-driven tabletop game system. So this handles all the genres for the system. That is just what he wanted to do. That was his decision to make. If that's the kind of thing that would appeal more to you than a bunch of different genre books, then this might be the game to bring to your table. But if you like the options that the wealth of options that you have for Tiny D6, there you go. Basically, you got to roll and you get a 5 or a 6 on a die. Then you're successful. You can modify that 5 down to a 4 with your karma points. The hit points in this game are called resolve, and I think everybody starts with 3. And you can lose resolve. You can also gain resolve. Resolve is basically hit points. If your resolve goes down, you end up having something happen to you. The archetypes are a trait combined with a concept. So an agile thief, a brawny barbarian, a crafty wizard, okay? And that's basically all you have there. Where Tiny D6 has traits, these have different, they have traits as well, but their traits are nowhere near broken down as they are in Tiny D6. So for an example, Barbarian rolls 3d6 to swing a sword, 2d6 to throw a spear, 1d6 to pick a lock, because it's based on their agile, brawny, and crafty. So he's brawny, so he rolls 3d6 for melee attacks. Agile is the second one that he's chosen, right? That's 2d6. And then if it's outside of what a barbarian have, like, trying to pick a lock, a barbarian trying to pick a lock, that's only 1d6, you need a 5. Perks. So then they have different genre rules, and that's you can modify the choices you make. Quirks, they should describe a character's actions. They allow you to, there's quirks, and quirks help you, but then they also give you a chance to not do so well, but they help you with something else. Then you have genre rules: cybernetics, fear and insanity, hack and slash, defeating monsters. This is their bestiary. That's it for their creatures. A bear is a rank 2 brawny, and the rank basically is their hit points, or how much you have to do to defeat it. Magic, you can, if you want to get a little bit more detailed than just using the 2d6, 3d6 system, you can use that as well. You can even play superheroes. They give you guidance on siege and battles, power limitations. Supernaturals is like creatures like werewolves and zombies and so forth that can do things to you if you lose all your resolve. And this gives you guidance on how to get rid of those. It even has rules for vehicles. And it's very, very minimalist, but it works. When I played my solo game, I get it. Sharp Mountain Games also some actual play using Tricube's Tales system. You can see this in play, and I think I will put those links to in the description below. But this is all you need for your character. Like, it's not. I mean, you don't even necessarily need a character sheet, you just write down a name. So these are my sample characters I created for a sci-fi game. Talessa, Crafty, Thoughtcaster, and I use the option of choosing a combat style, which gives you an additional ability to fight. Perk Psionics, Quirk Physically Fragile, Karma 3, Resolve 3, and so TT88, Crafty Synthoid Doctor, Gardor of Lothar. He's a brawny Lotharian soldier because I added heritages to him from my upcoming sci-fi game I'm making. Crafty Human Galaxy Force Investigator, Seth Montgomery. He's an investigator, but he's single-minded, Karma 3. So I created characters, and it literally takes, if you got a character vision in your mind, you can pretty much create it in like literally 2 minutes. And then you take them out on adventures. So like I said, I obviously have a lot more experience with TinyD6, running it for other people, running it solo and so forth. But I felt that Tricube Tales is really kind of like the best game to compare to TinyD6, simply because their mechanics are at their core very similar. You choose traits. Those traits can modify how well you roll dice. You only have to roll up to 3 dice. If you're really good at something, you roll 3. If you're really good at something, you roll 3. If you're okay at something, you roll 2. If you're okay at something, you roll 2. If you're not great at something, or you have some other kind of disadvantage, like it's close to out of range or whatever, you roll 1 die. Same with this. So I thought, wow, that's at their core. They take that idea and then they go in wildly different directions, but they're both still considered minimalist games. And I guess it comes down to, you know, what you want. So Tricube Tales, I say, is probably better for like one-shots, just because boom, done. And there's not a lot of guidance for advancement and so forth in here. And I think they're basically created for pretty much one-shots. The TinyD6 system is a little bit better for campaigns. If you want to go on campaigns, they have advanced, I think they even call them optional rules for advancement. Your characters can gain points, and then they can use those points to buy more traits, or to buy more weapon proficiencies, or get more hit points, or whatever. So so if you're looking to maybe run a campaign with a minimalist system, you might want to go with TinyD6. If you're looking for just one evening where people don't show up for your game and you got a couple people sitting around, whip out Tricube Tales, make your character. I mean, both character creation of these are very, very simple and very, very fast, but I think Tricube Tales is even faster, especially if you're working with experienced role players. They'll pretty much pick up on what they want their characters to do immediately. If you're working with new people, you know, I think both of these games are really good for beginners and for kids. Because of the minimalist nature of them. You may have to guide them a little bit in both as to what kind of characters they want to play. But of course, you know, you can use the usual systems like, all right, choose your favorite superhero, choose your favorite character, and now let's kind of see if we can kind of create a character like that for this, whatever. I mean, you know, you all know how to do that. So that is my take on these 2 games. And I think they're both great games, and I think you're going to have great fun playing both of them. It just depends on which one you think is best for your table. All right, well, let me know in the comments below what you think. What's been your experience with Tricube Tales? What's been your experience with TinyD6? If you had no experience with any of them, what do you think of these? What do you think is the one that you would try out first? So let me know in the comments below. And thank you so much for watching. Hopefully this was helpful. And until next time, keep on rolling dice and playing games. Magehammer out.